Until we can get our users using better solutions like OAuth or Squirrel, storing our user's password is going to be a common point of pain for us as developers. In this video, we're going to discuss how to help our users have good password hygiene and what we should be doing to protect their passwords. Hello developers, and welcome to PHP Developers TV, your home for everything you need to know to be a knowledgeable PHP developer. I'm your host, Scott Keck-Warren. Continuing Cybersecurity Awareness Month, today we're going to be talking about 5 things every developer needs to know about passwords. And we're going to start out by discussing why we should never store passwords in plain text. The most important thing we can do is to not save passwords in plain text. If our database is exposed to the internet, having passwords encrypted will reduce the chances that our users' information will be compromised on other sites. This is due to the fact that users tend to reuse the same username and password on multiple sites. It will also prevent our programmers from getting curious and attempting to use users' login information to access their online dating profile or, God forbid, their banking information. There's old information floating around on the internet that says passwords can be encrypted by just using a hashing function like SHA-1, SHA-256, or MD5. This is no longer the case. These functions provide a degree of protection, but because they always provide the same output for a specific input, it's easy to compute all of the values for the most commonly used passwords and easily crack the database. To improve security, we can add what's known as a salt to the password. This is a pre-computed blob of random text that we feed into the hashing function along with the password. So even if 2 users are using the same password, they will have different hash values. In our next video, we'll show you how to use PHP's built-in password functions to hash our passwords. So don't go writing an implementation on your own in the meantime. Finally, we can use an encryption algorithm that's either memory intensive or CPU intensive. By using one of these, we make it harder for an attacker to compromise our password list. For example, SHA-256 runs the algorithm multiple times to make it harder to crack the password. Prevent use of common passwords. A common way to gain unauthorized access to systems is for an attacker to guess a username and password combination. They may even already know a username they want to have access to, and they're just guessing the correct password. In doing this, they're not going to start out by guessing A and then B. What they're going to do is start out working down a list of common passwords like 12345, password, and QWERTY. To help our users help themselves, we can prevent them from using the top 200 or more passwords. You can find a link to 1,000,000 of the top common passwords in the description for this video below. Prevent brute force attacks. The next piece of advice is to make it hard for attackers to even attempt to brute force account credentials using our web's application login or API. What we want to do is slow down the attackers so they can't try thousands of combinations every hour. This can be done in a couple of ways. The first is to keep track of the number of failed attempts an account has had, and after 5 or so attempts, we can lock the account for an hour. This will prevent a specific account from being attacked. The downside to this is that an attacker can take advantage of this and switch accounts after the lockout has started and then switch back to the original account after the lockout has expired. It can also annoy our users who have had their accounts locked if they can't remember their passwords. My preference is to create a delay in processing the login requests per IP address. To do this, every time we process a login attempt from an IP address, we'll wait a number of seconds depending on the failed number of attempts that IP address has had before actually processing the request. I like to use the equation on the screen, but the numbers can be tweaked to suit different needs. At the lower end of the failed count is where most users are going to be, so the delay is small enough that they won't notice. If attackers are running through a lot of combinations, they'll quickly get into the area with wait times over half a minute. Favor long passwords over complex passwords. A password trend that needs to be stopped is requiring a complex password. We run into password requirement screens that have 8 rules where the password has to be so many characters long but not longer than another set of requirements. It also has to be lowercase and uppercase, digits and special characters. If a user hits this screen, they're going to do the least secure thing they can do, which is to write their password down somewhere. Unless the application we're supporting requires specific password requirements due to a compliance requirement, we always want to make it easy for our users to create hard to crack and yet easy to remember passwords. To this end, we should be allowing them to pick the complexity, but pushing them into a long password with one special character. The Gibson Research Corporation has a cool online tool that allows us to enter a password and see how long it would take to crack that password. It provides 3 scenarios. One is an online attack, where an attacker will be hitting our website over and over again. The next is an offline fast attack scenario, where someone has a copy of the user passwords and they're trying it on their computer. The last is a massive attack where they farmed out the solution to multiple computers. We're going to focus on the third situation because it's the worst case scenario. The first thing we're going to do is just to look at entering long password as the password. With this password, it will take about 16.5 minutes for an attacker to find our password. If we add a single exclamation point to our password, so it's long password exclamation point, the time to break the password jumps out to a little less than 34 years. Notice how our password is still easy to remember, and yet still provides 34 years worth of protection. As a slight side note, just by capitalizing the first letters of the words in our password sentence, we jump up to 39 centuries and it's still easy to remember. To this end, our password screens recommend a password of minimum 12 characters with a special character. Support two-factor authentication. Two-factor authentication is an option all websites should be offering their users. It reduces the chance an account will be compromised if an email and password are compromised on another site. We recommend offering two-factor authentication to all users as an extra precautionary method. Two-factor authentication works by giving our users a second way to authenticate themselves to our website. This allows us to check something that they know, which is their username and password, and something that they possess. This second factor must be a challenge for an attacker to get a hold of, or it defeats the whole purpose. SMS is the default option for most sites because so many users will have an SMS-capable phone nearby at all times. This is an okay option for sites where the information on the site can't be used to compromise other sites, or doesn't contain financial information. However, it's almost laughably easy for attackers to perform a SIM swapping attack, which is where they associate a SIM in their possession with a target's account. In cases where a high degree of security is required, it's best to use an authentication app or device. What you need to know to nail a job interview. Never store passwords in plain text, prevent the use of common passwords, prevent brute force attacks, favor long passwords over complex passwords, and support two-factor authentication. Thank you for watching this video. Be sure you like, comment, and subscribe as it does help other people find us. If you have questions or concerns about passwords or storing passwords for your application, please don't hesitate to ask them in the comments below. For PHP Developers TV, this is Scott Keck Warren signing off.